for us? All right, we are recording. Great. So Eric Lambert has worked in the field of stormwater education and outreach for the past 10 years in Clark County. He began his career working for the WSU Extension and brings an interdisciplinary approach to reducing stormwater pollution through positive community behavior change. As an outreach specialist for Clark County's Public Works Clean Water Division, he manages the Canines for Clean Water program and leads Stormwater Partners of Southwest Washington. And with that, Eric, I will let you take it away with your slides on pet waste. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Nikki, and thanks to everyone that is attending this webinar to hear more about this topic that I love to talk about, because it really is an issue here in this county and in a lot of different places, and something that I think is within reach to really try to address and manage successfully. So we'll be talking about the impacts of pet waste from a water quality perspective, but also from a human and from your perspective as well. We'll talk a little bit about pet waste relief areas. We'll get into some communication strategies, and then we'll also talk about, I'll finish up with some resources that can support some of your efforts. And I'll kind of talk a little bit about this Canines for Clean Water program, which is really founded under the school of thought of community-based social marketing, which is really focused on behavior change. And so that really involves looking at target audiences and understanding their motivations, their perceived benefits, the barriers that they perceive to kind of doing whatever the desired behavior change or the behavior is, and then trying to address it in a systematic way and evaluate those efforts as well. So there will be some cute dog photos here and there, because I was just told that looking at cute dog photos is good for your health, your mental health. So I'll sprinkle some of those in as well. And we'll start talking about pet waste issues with water quality. Obviously that's the background that I'm really here for, even though there are a lot of other issues that pet waste can touch as well. But the two big ones are bacteria and nutrients. And when we talk about bacteria, predominantly we look at E. coli, but that's one of the parameters that we have to measure in our streams. And a number of our streams are exceeding levels of bacteria that do not meet state thresholds. And so when we look at bacteria, one of the things that the stream monitors and scientists are doing in Clark County is we've been noticing bacteria levels that are too high, but we also understand there are a number of different sources for these bacteria issues. And so we started in the past 5 years or so DNA testing to look for which animals are producing this bacteria. Not surprisingly, dog is the one that's persistent and coming up in every sampling site in the East Fork Lewis River, in every sampling site we did in the Whipple Creek watershed, in all of our sampling sites at Salmon Creek, throughout the Salmon Creek watershed. And so we do know that bacteria from pet waste is an issue. I get a lot of questions about when I talk about bacteria, well, how do you know it's not another animal? And so this is why I want to let you know that we do know that dogs are being detected in all of the sites that we're sampling. Another thing that pet waste introduces is nutrients. And nutrients can be a problem in our waterways for a number of reasons. Every year in the summer, we have harmful algae blooms, it seems, in a lot of our swimming lakes, from Vancouver Lake, Lacamas Lake. They're all experiencing impacts from nutrient loading in the water. What that can do is not only produce these harmful algae blooms, which pose human health risks, but also introduces a process of eutrophication, where these nutrients feed plant life in the water that and algae in the water that that depletes the oxygen that fish need to live. And so not only does it pose a human risk, but also really marginalizes a lot of our waterways for the habitat purpose for our local fish populations. And so sometimes I get the question about, well, how does it get there? You know, it's on the grass, it's on the sidewalk, it's not in the stream. You know, I don't know anyone who lets their dog poop in the stream or in the lake. But this is a great photo here that illustrates the problem. And obviously, oil is a great way to illustrate this problem. Here's a leaky vehicle. It all flows downhill, and all of the storm drains are somewhere down slope where all of that stormwater is going. And so just as this car is leaking oil, and then it rained, and then you can see that sheen leading right into the storm drain, pet waste left outside is doing the same thing. So when that rainwater mixes with that pet waste is when those bacteria and when the nutrients also mix with that storm water. And why this is a real problem here is because those storm drains lead to our local waterways. This is a diagram that I think captures it really well. There can be a little bit of confusion sometimes because down in Portland, in the kind of inner Portland, they have a combined sewer and storm system, which is why they built that big pipe next to the Willamette. But yeah, so in our system here in Clark County, it's separate. So all the storm drains, they go right to the waterways, and there's no treatment there to remove the bacteria matter, the fecal coliform, the nutrients. A lot of times it's just discharging directly into our waterways. Unlike household water, which goes to the sanitary sewer, goes to the treatment plant, where it does get treated to remove a lot of the pollutants before it re-enters a waterway. So that's the problem from a water quality perspective, and why pet waste maybe as small and benign as it can seem for some people, really is an issue for the health of our waterways. But it can also be an issue for human and pet health. Pet waste, you know, dogs eat meat, and animals that do eat meat have do carry more pathogens and parasites than some other animals, and the bacteria. And this is just a list of some of the different pathogens, parasites that can be found in pet waste. And they can cause illness in pets and in humans. That's just one part of it. I think the other issue for humans and pets, and we'll get to more of this later, is actually just stepping in it and spreading it. So it can be a health issue for humans and health, but it can also just be a major inconvenience type of issue. You know, I think in some countries they say that stepping in pet waste will bring you good luck. I saw that in France, maybe stepping in it with your right foot is good luck, and if your left foot is bad luck. But fortunately, we don't have that type of superstition around here. I think it's all bad luck when you step in it, and it's all bad for the bottom of your shoes as well, and wherever you track it. And then from your perspective as a property manager, there are definitely some issues as well. Added maintenance is one issue. You know, your maintenance worker having workers to go around and pick up pet waste here and there. It's just more time that they're dedicated to doing something that really should be done by the dog owner. If there is a big issue, and in this picture in the upper right-hand corner there, you know, just a small, 4-foot span, and there's 6 places where people didn't pick up their pet waste. And this might be the common area. A lot of times multifamily residences will have a pet waste peninsula, I've heard it be called before, where it's just a real common place to go. And so going there and having to continue with the maintenance of cleaning up after residents for whatever reason, can be an issue. And then if it persists, maybe it turns into a residential complaint where your residents are complaining about stepping or the pet waste around the facility. That complaint can easily lead to more public complaints or public reviews that might not shine the light that you want on your property. And then we can get into stormwater codes. You know, if you have a stormwater facility that's loaded up with pet waste, that's going to be a violation that's not going to pass inspection. So again, kind of going back to additional maintenance that's needed, additional time on your part, addressing an issue that I think we can all agree should be addressed by the dog owners themselves. And also, believe it or not, it does kill grass. A lot of times people will say, oh, you know, it's a fertilizer, it's natural. But this picture in the lower right-hand corner is a picture from a multifamily place where clearly those brown spots are places where pets have been going. And there's actually sometimes too much nutrients in the pet waste where it will burn the grass, and too much nutrients will actually burn the grass and kill the grass, which again, you start talking about losing spots of grass, and if talk about that, then you talk about a place where weeds can start to grow, and just kind of spirals into another maintenance concern and issue that we hope you don't have to deal with. I want to kind of segue here into talking about one example in the city of Vancouver, Lewis Ridge Apartments, where they've done a really good job of addressing pet waste issues proactively. I think they have a smart plan and a smart approach, and we'll talk about that a little bit here. This is just an aerial photo of the complex here. In the lower the lower left-hand corner there, that's a stormwater facility. Initially, from these aerial photos, you may say, wow, that's a great place to have a pet waste area. But actually, stormwater facilities are not an appropriate place to have that pet waste area. And so what they've done, and this is pretty common in a lot of multifamily properties, they have, you know, a few little small green spaces here, just kind of dotted throughout the complex. And where all those red dots are is where they've installed a bag station with a little trash can and a small please scoop type of sign as well. When I spoke with the property manager here, they actually are also planning on installing another one in the upper right-hand corner where the orange dot is, because they found that the easier it is, the easier we make it for residents to do the right thing, the more likely they're going to do the right thing. And so they did this because they wanted to, you know, increase the rates of residents picking up. They wanted to also reduce the maintenance, because their maintenance people were going around searching for where people had left their dog waste, and that was just taking too much time. I know that you guys have a ton of stuff to do. Your maintenance folks have a ton of stuff to do, and we just wanted they wanted to reduce the maintenance, and also just to improve the service for the residents. It's something that that residents really do appreciate, something that can be a real value add for your apartment complex. And so they found that doing something as simple as, you know, installing a few pet waste stations has been helping. They've estimated that it's reduced the unscooped pet waste by 50%, which I think was pretty remarkable. And they also report that residents both use and appreciate the bags that are being offered. And these are just a couple photos of where they've installed some different pet waste stations. It's pretty simple. Some of the lessons that they learned include, you know, you have to include a pet waste bin. I think that maybe in one of their first ones that they included, they didn't have a bin. And, you know, with no bin, you're probably going to get people using the bags, but you're also just going to be probably finding a lot more bags around your multifamily complex. But when you're putting in a bin, they also suggested to make sure you don't make it too big. And that's really just to avoid encouraging people to put household wastes in those bins. So you want it really just sized appropriately for doing for holding the bags of the pet waste of your customers and residents. And then of course add bag stations to multiple areas. I think they kind of learned this when they wanted to install that fourth bag station, which is really just right across that the entrance road from that top picture there. So it's, within probably 150 feet of it. But you really want to meet people with where they are. If they're using it already, if they're using that area already, meeting them where they are and really kind of overcoming the barrier, no matter how large or small we may perceive it, can help with just getting people to comply and really just do the right thing. So I kind of call this the open and dispersed model. And really it's pretty simple. You probably already know where your pet waste peninsula is. You probably already know where people are using the area to relieve their animals. And so that would be a great location to do that. So identify those locations. And then the bag station, the waste receptacle, these are things you can buy. There's a number of different vendors that sell these, these as kits of buying the bag station and the receptacle together. You can buy them separately if you already have trash cans somewhere else. But then again, considering multiple stations and making the stations visible. I think it's good to kind of put them in the front there. So the ones that at the Lewis Ridge Apartments, as soon as you go in, you kind of can see that there's a pet waste station right there in one of the green spaces that's right there in front. I think it's good to make them visible for a number of reasons. One is it just kind of reinforces the expectations, but also just because I think when you have new customers come in, it's probably gives a perception, at least it did for me, that this place is pretty tidy and pretty clean. But also on the visibility aspect too, it's probably helpful to have good lighting in that area. We've done some surveys on why people do and don't pick up, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But one of the things that people report, and it was a little bit lower, it wasn't the top 3, but it was a top 5 reason was that they can't find it. And so making sure that people are going out and taking their dogs out to relieve themselves in the winter when it gets dark really early here. If they can't see it, it's a lot easier to walk away. And so that's one thing that's another consideration to have. I think some of the benefits of this type of model is that it doesn't require a fence. It really just requires the bag station and the bins. And it's really good for smaller green spaces. A lot of times these apartment complexes, you may not have a big space for a dog run, for example. And you may just have a few little green spaces where people are using it, and where you expect people to be using it, and just want to try to meet them where they are. I guess one of the drawbacks for having multiple locations is you may have more bag stations to refill, but I think that's a pretty negligible drawback compared to the benefits of saving time on maintenance with your staff and just making a more livable place for your residents. All right, and the next, let me see here. Okay, there we go. The other type of model is the dog run model, and that's with a fenced area. You can see this place here. They've got it's probably about maybe 200 feet wide and 200 feet long, and maybe, I don't know, 75, 100 feet wide. They kind of have some gravel around the outside for like a walking path for dogs, because dogs do like to kind of run along the side of the fence. Notice that they've also got, they have like a good base of gravel right around the entrance of the dog park, the dog run. And that's really important because without that, it gets muddy. People may not want to go in there, or if they do go in there, they're getting their dogs all muddy, and it makes a mess. So having the right kind of base that will reduce mud is important there. Obviously having the bag station and the waste receptacle inside the park. So people go in and it's kind of the expectation there. It's pretty obvious inside there. And then also you've got the double gate. And if you're not familiar with dog parks, this is really important because people are expected to have their dog on a leash walking up to that gate. They open the one gate, they're out in the middle of the gate where they can unleash their dog, and then they can open the next gate to let them out to play. And this is important because if there's multiple dogs in there, dogs are kind of, they get anxious when they're on the leash and there's like another dog that's super excited to come play with them. And that's where they can kind of snap at each other. So the double gate's just kind of a good way to reduce conflict. You'll also notice there they have there's a good lighting there. Obviously I didn't take this at night, but there's a light pole right there. So there's good lighting in the for the dog run for folks they're going to be using it in the evening and when it's dark. And the other thing that is important to consider for a dog run model is just having like a waiver form to make sure, because there may be dog conflicts here and there. And people keep their hold their dogs like their children and their family, and so people can get pretty serious about dog conflicts sometimes. And in a lot of city and a lot of dog parks in different cities, they'll have a dog park for medium to large dogs, and then they'll have a dog park for smaller dogs. It may not, if you have already kind of like size restrictions on your dogs, that's probably not going to be a problem. It may not be a problem anyway, but obviously they sometimes have those, try to separate them out because you don't want that super aggressive Chihuahua going after that Great Dane, if you know what I mean. So just having that waiver form, making sure your liability is all kind of lined up there is a good thing to consider if you do the dog model. I think one of the benefits is that this can really be advertised as a perk for your multifamily facility here. I sure think it's a perk. People usually go to parks so they can take their dog off the leash, but if you have one here, it's even better. It's something that I think could really be a value add to a multifamily property. And also, I think that it's good because it concentrates the maintenance into one area instead of having to go around to 3 or 4 different bag stations and refill them. They come to one place, refill it, empty out the trash at one place. Everybody knows this is the place to go. It's the only place to go here. And so that's one thing to think about, that a benefit to think about it that way. Obviously, the cost can be a bit of a drawback. It's going to be more expensive to put up this fence and install the right kind of gravel material at that place. But so cost is one consideration, and then the potential for dog conflicts, which I had mentioned before. So again, having the waiver form, I think, can probably cover you for that, and kind of see how it goes from there. This is that same location, an aerial view of that property. Boy, and if I took these arrows away right now, you may look at it right off the bat and say, wow, look at that great spot in the courtyard. Wouldn't that be a great place for just let dogs run right there? But those are actually stormwater facilities, which are not good places for pets to be. We don't want pets in the stormwater facilities, again, because they're They're leaving waste behind there. And that's an area where it's supposed to be letting stormwater, channeling stormwater there for some natural levels of filtration. But sometimes they also will overflow directly back into the storm sewer system and into our local streams. So you can see the big one, the oval shaped one there on the right, that's actually a detention pond. And now in this specific facility, they do have a fence around this detention pond, which you can't really see in the aerial. And then even in the lower left-hand corner, that green space in the middle is a swale, which I'm not sure if that's fenced or not in this specific complex, but it is good that they're not using that as a pet relief area. You can kind of see in the lower right-hand corner is where their dog run is. I like how it's kind of set off a little bit to the side there. When you really add it up, and I know parking is often an issue, but when you added this place up, it looked like it maybe took about 7 or 8 parking spots. So it's kind of weighing the benefits for that. Again, going back to seeing, is it the parking that you're short on, and maybe more of a dispersed and open model is better for your site. But if you have a good spot in the corner for a fenced in area, maybe that can be a real value add for your customers. And then another part of that's always important to mention when you're having your pet waste station is the selection of bags. Plastic bags, yes, for this case. I know sometimes, I always get people that are, very enthusiastic about environmental issues and really want to be the best. Plastic bags have a terrible rap, and rightfully so. But they're also important for some purposes. And in this case, is what we want the pet waste to be in. So just using plastic bags, regular plastic bags that you can just sell. A lot of times you'll see compostable or biodegradable bags, pet waste bags. And I get it. People probably think, oh, that's a great idea, because pet waste is eventually going to decompose in a decomposable bag, and that's less waste, and yada yada. And there's a point there, but the real problem is that the compostable bags actually, I think, confuse a lot of people and make them think that they're okay to put in the yard waste bins, which they're not. The composting process may not always reach a temperature that kills all of the bacteria and pathogens and parasites found in pet waste, and so they don't want pet waste, and they don't want biodegradable or compostable bags in their system. And so just avoiding the compostable bags or avoiding recycled bags, plastic bags, is maybe a good idea. And just having clear messaging that the bags belong in the trash. And I think having the trash can right with the pet waste station does a good job of that already. So that's probably another consideration if you're citing your pet waste bag station somewhere, then you probably want to think about, is this going to be an issue if I have this right next to our recycling area or our yard waste area if you have one, just to kind of make sure that the messaging is clear. If it is nearby there, having some clear messaging or stickers or something on the recycling or compost bins, clearly labeling that no pet waste belongs in here. It doesn't belong in the compost bins for what I had mentioned about before, but also the recycling, and you've probably heard this from some of the solid waste management folks that talk to multifamily properties, that plastic bags are really bad for our recycling waste stream. They gum up the machines, and they have to shut down everything in the factory pretty much, or in the sorting areas to get the bags out. And this, time is money, and that's really a way that they don't want to spend their time at those areas. And so, and that's not even to mention the contamination that the pet waste is going to have on the recycled products. So definitely not in the recycling, definitely not in the compost bins. I encourage having some messaging there, making sure people know that there's no pet waste there. And, again, going back to a lot of those folks that are kind of like, well, hey, does it really need to be in the landfill? It's kind of natural. I always tell people, landfills are designed to handle pet waste, and they are. There's a science behind it. There's liners under these landfills. Yes, landfills are ugly and gross, but they're the best place to put it, and they're designed to put it there. The other thing that people say, well, it's natural, and I dispel that myth as well. Originally there were maybe 70 or fewer wolves in Clark County roaming naturally, and today there's over 110,000 dogs in Clark County. So it's not really natural anymore. So yes to plastic bags, yes to clear messaging on where and how to dispose of it properly. Kind of change gears here a little bit. We've talked about some of the kind of structural things that you could implement in your multifamily properties to help to overcome barriers and increase frequency of people disposing of pet waste and managing their pet waste properly. But we'll change gears a little bit to communication, which is also an important aspect of any of these campaigns and any of these efforts. One thing that is really important is positive reinforcement. This is what works. And they've done a number of different studies in the community-based social marketing world about positive reinforcement. And, there's a lot of ways to message about something. Do you want to kind of condemn the bad activity first, or do you want to, fire a warning shot and kind of about some action that could be taken if you don't? Or, well, truthfully, it seems like the research has shown that positive reinforcement is going to have the most effective benefit to your campaign. And you really want to recognize good behavior, and you can do this publicly in newsletters, maybe giving a shout out to some dog owners that you've witnessed or you've seen doing a good job, or maybe going above and beyond. Or maybe there's a kiosk that you want to set up, or some kind of recognition type of area near your pet waste station where people can take pledges. And Canines for Clean Water actually has a Canines for Clean Water pledge that people can take, and they get a little bandana like this dog here. And so maybe you could highlight people that have taken the Canines for Clean Water pledge, or your own type of pledge at your property. Social media, you may want to get out on social media to do some messaging there. And small incentives to recognize good behavior. I've read some research on this as well. Some articles and from some different pet waste or from different property managers that have, given little dog treats or little kind of dog toys, or maybe a carrying clip for the bag to residents that are doing a good job, or maybe residents that have taken the pledge. I like the idea of a little carrying clip, because a lot of times people don't want to carry the bag. So if they are going on an extended walk and they grab a bag from your new pet waste station, but then they head out to the street and to use that bag, and maybe they don't want to carry it back to that trash can, but those little carrying clips can be really beneficial. Nobody wants to carry a full bag of dog poop. I get it. And these clips can kind of attach to a leash, so you don't have to have it on your bare hand. So I like these kind of incentives that also help to overcome barriers and increase kind of compliance with the behavior you want. And then another thing is to avoid reinforcing negative behaviors. And this is an interesting one because, sometimes a lot of times in messaging, you can kind of talk about the problem in a way, like there have been a lot of people not picking up. And part of the concern there, and some of the research has bared this out in community-based social marketing, is that when you say a statement like that, yes, you are assuming that it's a negative behavior, and you're probably even conveying that it is a negative behavior. But what you're also doing when you're reinforcing the behavior that way is that you're kind of normalizing that a lot of people do it. And one of the big kind of pushes for people to do the right thing, to do the right behavior, is social pressure. And so when they see something like, hey, a lot of people are doing this, okay, I guess I'll do it that time too. Versus, making sure that when you're messaging about this stuff, you're kind of reinforcing the good behavior and kind of highlighting the people that are doing the right thing, so that it appears that that's what people do. And so that's one thing that's good to consider as well. You also want to be clear with your expectations, and you can do this publicly with signage and posted rules. You can do it privately with your lease agreements, and what goes in there. You also want to be clear about where to throw it out. Again, I kind of talked about that before, but so this year we've been doing some research and on pet waste and getting people to pick up more. And we were doing an intercept survey at some local dog parks a few months ago. And the intercept survey was pretty simple. It was really like, we had 5 questions to ask people, and we did it in East Vancouver, and we did it in around the Brush Prairie area. And we said, what are the benefits of picking up at home, and what makes it difficult to pick up at home? What are the benefits of picking up a walk? What are the same question, what are the benefits, and then what makes it difficult to pick up on a walk? And then we asked them about who the most trusted sources were. And that's where these things came in. And the topic here is to lead with benefits, and that's what you want to do with your messaging, is to kind of lead with in the first initial part of whatever your communication is should be the benefit. The number one benefit was, and this was by a margin of about 5% or more, was that you won't step in it. And that was both for you won't step in it and other people won't step in it. So clearly stepping in it is the worst thing about pet waste. I may agree with that. And number 2 and 2A and 2B, these were both tied for the most common response for the benefit of picking up at home and on walks. It's the right thing to do. And also, yard cleanliness and beautification. And coming in at number 3 was, pet and child health. And that was particularly more on walks, which I think would also apply to multifamily places where, it is a shared location. And so some of these benefits are some things that I think are good points to lead with in your communication and how you can do that. And speaking of communication, we have, I have some kind of little newsletter type of small articles. I think one of them is top 3 tips for picking up after your dog. And one is like everyone likes lists. So one is the top 3 reasons why. And I can share those after this presentation. We can mail these out or email these out to everyone. Eventually they'll be on the Canines for Clean Water website. But this is just basically some content you can use if you have a newsletter or you have something some way to communicate, an email maybe with, or even a social media post. You can share these with your residents if you need. And we'll finish up here with some resources that are available. The Canines for Clean Water program, which you can go to their website at cleanwaterdogs.com. There's some resources there, including signs for common areas. And that's the sign you see in the upper left-hand corner there. These signs are free. You can contact your local jurisdiction to ask them for a sign, or you can go to caninesforcleanwater.com and you can find an email there. There's like a request form there, or just, I think my email is there as well. So you can just ask me for a sign and we'll provide these signs for you. Signs make a difference. I have in my property here, it's a single family, but I have a hedgerow out in the front beside a sidewalk, and there was some people that were leaving pet waste kind of in the hedgerow. That's a great place to leave pet waste because the person who owns the house can't see you. And I put a little sign there, a little please scoop sign. And to be honest, after I put that sign there, I haven't seen pet waste there ever again. So signs can really make a difference. Also, like I mentioned before, I have some content for newsletters and social media. There's a couple of images there on the right-hand side of this slide. Pick up after your pet. It's good for your soul. Dog poop is raw sewage, which a lot of people don't think about. Be a good neighbor and pick it up. We have some other graphics that are like that in the same design style that are good for social media that I can share with you as well after this meeting. And we also have some brochures and handouts for people, if you want facts about pet waste. Some of the facts are pretty crazy on like a county level with 110,000 dogs. You're looking at, tons and tons and tons of pet waste a day, which is remarkable. And so picking up really is important. And also the Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington, they have a neighborhood grants program that can help fund pet waste stations, pictured here in the lower right left-hand corner. And the catch there is that you have to be in this Vancouver city limits to be eligible there. I did check in with them whether multifamily property managers are eligible to apply for this, and you are. So that can help cover the cost of these pet waste stations. It's kind of a balance there because there's a little bit of paperwork you have to do to apply for the grant. But if that's more important to you, and maybe your budget's not there to get the stations today, and you're in the city, then that's a program you can reach out to there. You can just search for Watershed Alliance of Southwest Washington, and pretty easily find the neighborhood grants program there. So that's what I've got to talk about with pet waste. And so I guess I'll just open it up right now to see if there are any questions. And I guess I'll stop sharing so I can have a look at the comments. All right, it's been informative. That's good. And I want to make myself available to you, heading up the Canines for Clean Water program. Again, cleanwaterdogs.com. Don't hesitate to reach out that way, and we'll get you what we can get you.
That sounds great, Eric. Thanks for your time. And I'm not seeing questions in the chat, so it seems like you covered all the bases and just really hit a home run on this. So I think with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up the recording. And just thanks again for everybody who was able to attend today. Thank you for spending your time to learn about this important topic. And please do reach out to Eric for more information on pet waste.